Welcome to the Agent of Wealth podcast with Marc Bautis from Bautis Financial. In this podcast, Marc helps guide you towards financial freedom, ensure you never run out of money, and create a balance in life that prioritizes what is most important to you. Join us for this journey as Marc draws from years of expertise and guest experts to solve the multiple wealth building challenges involved in your financial life.
Welcome back to the Agent of Wealth. This is your host, Marc Bautis. Today I'm joined by a special guest, David Buck. David is the co-author of The Time Optimized Life, Moving Everyday Preparation, Execution, and Control from Finite to Infinite. Written with his wife, the Reverend Dr. Susan Rose. David has 35 plus years of organizational and time management experience that led him to start Kairos Management Solutions and the Infinity Lifestyle Design Program. David empowers business professionals to overcome their struggles of a lack of flexibility in life. He's helped his clients craft a strategy to optimize their time that defines a lifestyle focused on meaning, purpose, and joy. David, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Marc. I appreciate you having me on it.
So I think time management's a topic that is probably relevant to most of us, no matter where we are, what we're doing. To kind of start off and give us some baseline here, how would you define time management?
That's a great question because time management to me, and as I've looked at others who have also written on this subject, is all about this idea of structuring your time in a way to make the most of it. The challenge, though, is that I'm not a fan of the word management when you apply it to time, because what I find is people are too reactive in their time. They wait for events to happen, and then they may manage their time well in that process, but then they still have all the other stuff that they had to do that then needs to be put into the mix. And that's where I kind of crafted the phrase time optimization, because it flips the script. It makes you it takes you from being reactive to being proactive. So you're more in control of how you use your time.
And does that just mean you plan optimization, you plan further out or you incorporate more, or is there what else makes it different? And I guess time management, at a high level, I think of it as two things. I think of it 24 hours in the day. How am I going to best use those 24 hours? But then also you look at it longer than that. There's a week, there's a month, there's a year. And now I also have to kind of not just focus on day to day, but also kind of look more longer term and figure out, all right, how do I best use the weeks and the months and the years that are upcoming as well?
Yeah, that's the element in essence. It's a great summary you said there about the idea of there's different elements of different durations of time. Too many people are just looking at the instant, at the now, or maybe tomorrow, but they're not looking a little further out. And it doesn't mean you have to be all encompassing, like I've got to try to figure out what life is going to be like 6 months from now. No, you're not going to know that. But if you have some basis or some planning and you think, hey, I'd like to be able to achieve some things within 6 months, that significantly changes the behaviors you do in the moment. And I use an acronym called PEC or PEC, and it's preparation, execution, and control. And those three elements integrated in both the short and the long term become the basis about how you can be more proactive and how you want to use your time.
And when you say short term, is that like a day? What would constitute like a short term duration?
A short-term duration for me is a day, because so many people live in the moment. And then kind of like a midterm for me would be like 90 days. Mm-hmm. And then long-term would be 6 months or more. In and amongst all the process that I use with clients, we focus on the tactics of the day and the week. But there is an element of longer term planning from short term all the way on up to what I call a bucket or a vision list, where you throw things out there, crazy aspirational things that you hadn't thought about doing, but you're going to put it out there on a list because maybe in the future you are going to invest time in that.
And then how do you, so let's say you do the vision board or you put that out there. How does it then incorporate it into the short term? Because I think that's what a lot of people struggle with. I mean, a lot of people struggle with a lot of aspects of time management, but one of them is, okay, I have these things that I want to do. Maybe they're 6 months out, maybe they're a year out, maybe they're 5 years out. But then I just get so bogged down with things that happen day to day that it just keeps getting pushed back, and you wind up never actually getting there.
And that goes to the reactive nature of how we approach and use time. When I work with clients, typically what I'll do is show me your calendar, and they'll pull their calendar up electronic, or even if they, are still old school, which is fine, on using a planner. And what I see is a series of things filled in. And I say, so tell me what's going on in these blocks of times. Well, it's usually a meeting I've been asked to attend, or it's something I'm facilitating. So I said, what happens in all the blank spaces and all the quote open time? Well, I just try to work on my task lists during those timeframes. I said, well, what if someone is a meeting bully and throws in a meeting in a time that you had something planned with? And they said, well, then I adjust accordingly. That's where I challenge people to say, you should plan every hour of every day 2 weeks out, with a big caveat. It's what I call the wet cement rule, meaning when you pour cement into a foundation, it takes time to cure and dry, and you can change and manipulate that foundation if you need to. That's what I ask people to do with their calendars. Lay your foundation out for 2 weeks. You know it's going to change, but then you're in the driver's seat, because then you either get to negotiate if someone wants to use your time, or challenge back because you're saying, hey, I've already got something important planned here. Let's negotiate a time that works out best for both of us.
So I guess that's a concept of like time blocking, where you're basically putting your time, and you're saying, okay, in this block, I'm going to do this. And let's say it's something important. Nothing is going to, this is going to be a priority, and nothing's going to come in here and bully my time or take my time away from me. I think I see a lot of entrepreneurs having issues with time management. And there's always this phrase, oh, you're spending time working on your business or in your business. How does someone figure out what's the right balance between those two things?
That is a great question. As one who's an entrepreneur myself, I struggled with it and still do in some certain aspects, because it's easy to say everything's a priority, particularly if you're a solopreneur or you have a small staff, because you are involved in the decision makings and key things that could happen. What I try to tell people to do is, how can you remove or automate the tactical aspects that you do in life? There's so much great software, even our base calendars. If you've got an email exchange server, you have a task function on there, you have a calendar on there. But also there's a whole host of great automated tools out there. So what do you do? For example, I have all of my social media content automated for this week. It's already going to go out. I don't have to think about when it goes out or how it goes out. I have also, when I get an inbound lead, there are certain elements I've set up on my automation that I don't have to do anything until I need to react to something that maybe I'm at a point where they want to engage deeper. So there's elements that we all need to do, no matter what we can do, baseline tasks that we can automate or offload to others, so that we're spending more time in strategy and less in tactics.
And is it just to kind of, because I imagine a lot of people, their day goes by and they're like, well, where'd my day go? What did I actually do? Is it actually like kind of creating like a journal or an audit of what are you actually doing? And then figuring out, can this be delegated, automated, or replaced with or removed by doing something?
I love the audit. And I would say to people, if you want to go down that route, you got to dedicate time to it. But it's so enlightening. And you can journal, like you talked about. That's a great way to be able to self-evaluate. If you want to get a little bit more tech, there's two great apps out there. One's called Toggle, the other's called Clockify. I use Clockify. They have two great free versions that you can use, and you can track your time. So literally start the clock, stop the clock. And it takes some discipline and some diligence. But if you do that for 6 weeks and then go back and audit yourself, you will be, every client that I've done that has done that is shocked at how much time they quote waste. And it's eye-opening. But whether you journal or do that or not, you've got to give yourself at least 30 to 60 days between that amount, so that you can understand patterns of behavior that you can correct.
Yeah, and the reason I bring it up is because we also find success in our field with it. As a financial planner, we have a lot of people that come in and say, I don't know where's my money going? I don't know where my money's going. And we say, well, probably the best exercise you can do is just for a period of time, track it to the dollar. And it'll be enlightening to see there's probably a lot of waste that's going in there, but you're also probably like surprised that, oh, I'm spending this much on this or this much on this. It's not the most fun exercise to do, but it's enlightening. Like you said, it's enlightening. And I guess people trying to lose weight or get in better shape, similar concept. Track what you eat, and they say studies show that if you do that, you actually are more, there's more transparency into what you're actually eating. And again, you'll find surprises in there, or it'll be enlightening, and that's what can kind of help spur you for improvement.
Yeah, I love that too. Applying that same principles to other areas of life.
So the subtitle of your book is Going from Finite to Infinite. What exactly does that mean?
Well, we all live in finite time. I mean, we all consume time at the same rate. So a second to you is the same as a second to me and every listener out there. The idea, though, is the more that I am productive as I consume my time, the more it seems like I have. And I use the analogy. So if both of us went to go see a movie and I loved the movie and you hated the movie, when we would come out, the conversation could be something like, man, that was a great movie. That went by really fast, Mark, right? And you're going, nah, I couldn't stand that movie. It took forever to get that done. And so two uses of time, the same amount with very different outcomes. So the idea is the more you use your time to your preferred outcomes, the more infinite it feels, the more like, oh, I have more time to do more things.
And is there a way right, there's also kind of doing more things, but in addition to, I could see a benefit of this. How do you actually track that you're more productive, doing more important things? Is there a way to kind of take this exercise and not just, I knocked off 50 things on my task list versus 30, but also that you were doing the right things?
And that goes to prioritization. So many people treat all tasks equally. As you had mentioned, they create a list, and I'm like, I got, 50 tasks done today, but you had 51 that you needed to do. And the last one was the most important one that would have taken the most time. So the idea is for you to say, people say prioritize and start with the top and work your way down. And I'm not discounting that, but I like to add another twist to that to say, define which ones must be done. So if you've got 10 tasks today and 2 of them must be done, you need to feel okay that the other 8 didn't get done because you got done with the 2 that meant the most to you. And then you can find out, how can I plug in those other tasks later on that want to do that? So it's prioritization plus what must get done.
Yeah, I've read a book a while ago, and I might not get the title right. It's something about eating the frog first or eating the...
Yes.
But that's basically what the author's saying is, if once you take care of that hard task, that one that's going to take a lot of time, everything else in the day becomes easier, and you get the most important one done first to make sure that prioritized one gets done.
Yeah, that's a good quick read for a book if people want to know, how do I not procrastinate? Eat That Frog is a good book for you to get.
I want to go back to, I guess, the method that you talked about, the PEC or the PEC method. Maybe can you walk me through like an example of how someone would actually implement that to improve their time management or time optimization?
Sure. So let's just go back to, I'm going to plan my week out on the calendar. So the P of PEC or PEC is preparation. So I'm going to plan every hour of every day out. Again, knowing it's going to change. But you've, through that preparation, have established guardrails around how I want to spend my time. Then you begin to execute. And that execution says, I am going to, as best I can, go forward and plan the plan that I've established, execute against that plan, with the idea that I have to adapt, because there's going to be things that are going to come my way. If you're a business owner, you as a financial advisor, or you're going to have a client that's going to call you that you're going to have to stop and address. Yes, that's going to happen.
Are you building that into the plan? So, for example, if you're doing it an hour, you're going through each hour of the day, are you putting in, I don't know, for lack of a better word, buffer hours, or are you kind of just filling it in and knowing, okay, if something comes up, this is the one this slot I'm going to push back?
Great ad. So what I do is I plan a buffer or flex time. That flex time is for the purposes of me to do lower level tasks or activities that I have planned for that day, not the important ones. For your point, exactly, if something happens and I need to then plug that time in with a more important thing, I'm not having to juggle between top priorities. It's like, okay, I can put this in and I'll worry about those other things later. So yes, there is built in flex time. And so as I begin to execute against that, I adapt accordingly. And then we move to control. And control is essence, I'm going to hold myself accountable for the outcomes that I need to have happen, even if it comes very differently than I anticipated. I planned it, but it didn't go the way I wanted, but the outcomes stayed the same. And in each one of the elements of preparation, execution, and control, I will challenge myself to say, if I prepared poorly, I need to spend more time to fix it. If I'm executing poorly, I need to say, do I need to go back and prepare differently? If I'm not controlling the outcomes, I adjust how I'm executing and maybe how I prepared in order that the three continuously work together so that you seek perfection, but you never attain it, but the journey is worth it.
Just to go one more step lower on the control piece of it, how does someone determine this worked out, this was a success? Are you tracking and saying, okay, this is what I had planned for the week, kind of from there looking at it, or is there some other strategy or method?
No, thank you for pointing that out. So what I do in my method, and I ask my clients to do, is a morning and evening gut check. So in essence, in the morning, I look at my calendar and verify, am I still going to go forward? My calendar or my tasks. I'm going to say to myself, okay, everything looks okay, it's in line, or I adjust accordingly based upon late breaking priorities. And then at the end, and that's 10, 15 minutes. It's not a huge block of time. Then at the end of the day, you do the same thing again, 10, 15 minutes. I go look back at how the day went. What did I do? What did I didn't do? What should I have done better? What went well? And then you look at tomorrow and say, well, how did my progress or lack thereof today need to be reflected in tomorrow's activity? You go to sleep. And because we're a digital 24-hour world, things can change overnight. You again do the cadence again in the morning. So the morning and the evening gut checks just become part of your rolling strategy.
So that morning gut check is really to see, okay, did anything change from yesterday and that I need to update my plan for today?
Correct. Yes.
I wanted to ask a question about, going almost the opposite way, right? So a lot of people have the struggle with finding enough time, right? And it's a lot of different things go in it. A lot of people we work with are kind of going the other way. They're retiring and they're going to go from having this regimented routine or daily routine to now there's actually more time than they know what to do with it. How does someone approach that problem when it comes to time management?
Yes, and I try to encourage people who are really, I know this may sound too far out, but I really say at 55, you need to start thinking, because if you're going to retire, say at 65, let's just use that. But really 5 to 10 years out from retirement, you need to be thinking about what that life is going to be like, because you talked about this, all of a sudden you have this quote found time. And for perspective, if you're working 48 hours a week and you're fortunate enough to sleep 7 hours a night, that is 40% of your awake time is automatically structured around a career. And if you choose to head into retirement, quote, cold turkey or mic drop moment where I'm not working at all, you now have to find out, what am I going to do in that 40% time that I have? And people struggle with that a lot. Either they'll boomerang back into a job or they just find they're adrift. And so whether or not you're in retirement, this is for anybody for every age, but I work with clients, particularly getting close to retirement, is define your purpose in life. It's not what you do for a living. It can include it, but define your ultimate purpose. What's going to get you up in the morning? And from that lens then becomes the way in which you can define time usage and activities that fulfill that purpose.
So is it the same, right? Once you do find that purpose, is it the same concept? You're still doing that plan, execute, control, and just, yes. It's like the parameters are just different now that there's more time. You're not just kind of struggling to find the time. You're actually now figuring out how best to optimize or use that time.
Correct. But what makes it a little bit more difficult is it's all it's more nebulous in the sense that, I could wake up today and I don't necessarily, when I work, have to even look at my calendar. I know I got a bunch of stuff to do. That's not the case in retirement. You wake up, and if you haven't planned it, there is not going to be this natural element of a career structure that's going to make you do something. And so the idea gets even more important that you do that structure. Now, I may modify my adaptation and say, you don't necessarily have to plan every hour of every day because you might not have the same demands, but you should be able to know, what is a typical week going to be like for me in retirement if I choose to not work, partially work, or whatever. And so difficult exercise to take that doesn't sound difficult, but it is I take my clients through, develop me a typical retirement week where you're not copying and pasting every day or you're making it look like Groundhog's Day.
I'm sure that's a good exercise too. Yeah. You mentioned the 2 technology apps to help with auditing your time or tracking it. What other apps or tools are out there? I know you mentioned like an Exchange calendar or Exchange server, but what else is out there that people can use to kind of help them?
Well, I'll go back. I am a big proponent of simple is better. So I think before you pursue any other tech, make sure that you effectively use your calendar and the task function that's tied to your software. Again, if every email exchange server, I think 98% of them have those built in as part of their software. Get to know how to use those 100%, because you'll find that's probably all you need. Now, what does benefit is the idea in collaboration tools. So if you're a Microsoft base and there's Teams, that works well in a office environment, or something like a Trello or even Slack. Those are 2 software tools that allow for great collaboration and to kind of help hold each other accountable on their usage of time as well. But before you dive into those, which will give you great options, know the basics first.
The next question is one that I've seemed to be asking pretty much everyone that I interview on this show, but it's how do you see AI or artificial intelligence kind of improving or helping or the whole time management or time optimization space?
Well, and people tell me, aren't you worried that AI is gonna replace you? Because there's amazing things coming down the road with AI as it relates to time. Some of it's really cool, some of it's scary. So, for example, our phones are going to be integrated where we will have virtual assistants who will help us and verbally remind us and begin to suggest where to use that. So that can be an amazing time thing. But what I find is when people have more time and they're not structured, they waste it. So the idea is look to AI as a way to help save you time. But then you have to challenge yourself. How am I going to fill that time with quality time that AI might open up for me? So you're not sitting there going, wow, my virtual assistant gave me 45 minutes of extra time and I ended up watching YouTube videos. The onus is still going to be on you to make sure you're filling it up with quality time.
Yeah, I could definitely see that how important the quality time aspect of it is. All right, David, that's all the questions I have for you today. I want to thank you for taking the time to share your expertise with me. Before we go, how best can listeners reach out to you, learn more about what you do, or get a copy of your book?
Well, Mark, first of all, thanks very much again for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. And the easiest way to do is to go to my website, infinitylifestyledesign.com. Again, infinitylifestyledesign.com. And on the front page there, if you want to learn more about the book, kind of like, I need to learn a little bit more about this, you can download chapter 1 of the book. The book's available on all the major online platforms from Amazon, Target, Barnes & Noble. You can go there and get them. And then I'd also invite you, if you're kind of curious, if you scroll down further on the front page, you've got the opportunity to take a couple of assessments. One is the time management analysis, which I'll give you a free summary report that gives you an idea of where your opportunities lie. And then if you're closer to retirement and wanting to figure out how am I going to spend my time, then you can take the retirement time analysis again and get a free summary report.
Great. We'll include all those resources in the show notes. Thanks again, David, and thank you to everyone who tuned in today. Don't forget to follow the Agent of Wealth on the platform you listen from and leave us a review of the show. We're currently accepting new clients, and if you'd like to schedule a one-on-one consultation with our advisors, please do so at bautisfinancial.com/call.
Thank you for listening to the Agent of Wealth podcast. Click the subscribe button below to be notified when new episodes become available. The information covered represents the views and opinions of the guests and does not necessarily represent the views or opinions of Bautis Financial. The content has been made available for informational and educational purposes only and is not intended to be a substitute for professional financial planning and investment advice. Always seek the advice of your financial advisor or other qualified financial service provider with any questions you may have regarding your investments and financial planning.